So today we're going to be talking about first impressions that last, creating signature senior living experiences. We've got an awesome webinar lined up along with a great speaker. So we've got Scott Wozniak, who is the CEO of Swoz Consulting. Okay, so Scott, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself for the folks here?
Yeah, man, glad to be here. And yeah, this is a shared passion for us. My background definitely is Chick-fil-A, but man, that's way back in the day. Since then, actually, so I used to be on staff at Chick-fil-A and did a lot of their strategy and customer experience work and kind of built their systems. But when I left to build my own firm, the first project that got me to consider leaving was actually going to work in a long-term program with, actually it was a CMS innovation grant focused on long-term care, senior living facilities, everything from assisted living, nursing homes, that whole space. So by the way, before they could sign the contract, Chick-fil-A beat me. So technically Chick-fil-A was the first client to sign a contract with me. But yeah, the first major project I did building my firm outside Chick-fil-A was diving into the same space. So yeah, like you, been in hundreds of facilities, helping people figure out how do you tactically build this the kind of experience we want to, right? Like we all care about it. How do you actually translate that down to all the staff and tools and make this the kind of place that is really the life-giving place we want? So yeah, great, man. Excited to be here.
Good stuff. Let's dig into it.
Sweet. Well, let's dive into this because as I mentioned, so my background, I used to be one of the senior guys at Chick-fil-A, but I had a really unique job. My job was not to run any one of the departments. I worked directly with the family that owns it and the executive team. And I was there to do crazy stuff. Like literally, here's what it came down to. 50% of my job was travel the world, go inside other companies and figure out how the best in the world operate. Not the best restaurants, all the best companies in the world. They had all sorts of crazy connections and they connected me to this really good stuff. And man, they dove in and said, how do you create these moments? What do you tactically do? And we got some really interesting stuff. In fact, we got a poll question going on right now. So if you guys would check in on the poll and do this, how do you think your experience is doing, right? How would you rate yourself on this? And so there's some interesting stuff here to dig into. I want to talk to you about the lessons I learned doing this. Here's what we found. It's not magic. It's not luck. There's a system. There's a set of systems, some tactical things you do that just create raving fans, make these kind of amazing experiences for people. And I want to walk through how to do that, what the engine is, and we'll spend extra time today digging into these first impression moments. How do we create this? So I'm going to give you the big picture, give you some of the big ideas, and I'm going to drill in and give you some really specific tactical things you can do to really make these moments pop and create these raving fan experiences, these life impact moments. So before we get into this, this is the engine, right? This is what we learned. See, I began to notice a pattern. All the great companies have the same set of systems, and we started describing it like this. Now, I like the engine metaphor because it helps you get from this idea. It's not a wild, random chance. It's a system. It's a tactical thing. You do this, this, and this, and you get people who have kind of lasting, powerful moments. It's just how you do it. This, of course, is a generic engine. You're going to need to translate it into your setting with your team and your tools. And so that's what I'm going to do is walk through how this works and what the process looks like. And where I want to start is with customer insight. Do we really know the people we're talking about? Now, let me look here. Who's the customer? Well, you could really think about this in multiple levels. Are we talking about the end user, the residents, the people, the men and women who share these facilities and we care for? Are we talking about their families, the visitors, the other folks coming to visit the facility? Are we talking about your staff? Yes. And I don't want to be vague. The question is, who's your customer? Maybe you're here and you're the kind of person that actually serves the direct residents. Or maybe you're one of the leaders and your customer is you take care of your staff and you show up and take care of them and make sure they have all the stuff they need to be able to take care of the residents. Or maybe you're the person who interfaces with the public. You're the marketing person, you're the partner coordinator, whatever title you've got. And you partner with a lot of the organizations who bring you, residents and families and all those other things. And so this works in all those settings, which is why I said you're going to have to translate this into your context. I'm going to give you a variety of examples and hopefully make sure everybody gets something they have out of this. But I will say this, we've got questions and chats, and we're going to have time for Q&A at the end. And so if along the way, I'll spend the next 20, 30 minutes here giving you the big picture and ideas. If there's a spot where you're like, what does that mean for me? How do we do this? Again, I have been doing this in facilities for over a decade now. We've got the answer, and I just maybe not have time to cover all the details here, but throw it up and we'll get to those questions when we can in the chat process. Do you really know your customer? And you know what we find is most people don't actually have customer insight. They have customer data, right? We know facts about them. We know what their health stats are maybe, or what their visit numbers are, or whatever the kind of facts about the case are. But do we understand them as a person? Do we know their story? And if you want to create a powerful impression, you really have to go from data to insight. And I'm going to illustrate this by playing a game here. This is a guessing game. So you're going to get in the chat and have some fun with this. I'm thinking of a famous man. This is a super famous person. I guarantee everybody has heard of this person. And I'm going to give you 4 facts about my famous man. And we're going to see how many of you can guess the same famous person I'm thinking of. So it's a guessing game. You have unlimited guesses. So if you get to fact 3 and change your mind, drop a new fact in. Bonus points. We'll scroll through and see kind of who gets the first one to get it. And we'll see how many of you agree at the end. Everyone who guesses it correctly kind of gets credibility points here. We'll 10x your CE credits. That's a joke. I don't have the power to give you 10 hours credit for that, but you'll feel cool. How's that? Okay, so here we go. Here's my famous man, and here's the 4 facts about him. So get ready to start guessing. Load your chat up. All right, he's a British citizen. So think of famous English people, right? So English dudes. He's older, so 65 to 75. He is alive. I think he's getting closer to the 75 end of that spectrum now. He lives in a castle, pretty nice house, right? You know, got a nice little backyard set up there. He's got 2 famous children. Let's see. We got some guesses loading up here. And you know what I'm seeing a bunch of? I'm seeing a bunch of King Charles. Congratulations. Actually, no. Because, sorry, that might have been a decent answer, but I was actually thinking of Ozzy Osbourne. But yeah, it's okay. You know, it's pretty much the same guy, right? I mean, you don't need to know the difference. Heck no, man. I mean, these guys could not be more different and have the exact same customer data. Like if all you have is the demographic facts, then you would think that Charles is the same person as Ozzy. And man, if you want to make an impact and build a connection and really create a raving fan, man, I can't think of a single thing that Charles would love that Ozzy wouldn't hate. Do you know the difference between your Charlies and your Ozzies? Or are you treating everybody generically the same? Now, we'll talk about this in a minute. There are some fundamentals everybody should get. But man, there are these little touches. There are these moments as we go throughout where you're going to say, hey, what do I do? And if you know, I mean, Charlie loves this, Ozzy loves the opposite. Do you really know the people that we're talking to? And this might work for residents and the life story. This certainly works on a business-to-business side. If you're partnering with, say, hospitals or other organizations, this works for the people visiting. If you really understand who they are, then your ability to add tiny touches that blow their mind gets great. Listen, as we go through the rest of this, there might be points where I'm sharing a range of options and you'll think, I don't know which one fits. If you ever feel like you have to guess, don't guess. That's just a signal you need to go back upstream and get customer insight. If you really understood the difference between your Charlies and Ozzies, you would know what they care about. And so customer insight, going past just stats to really understanding stories, that really informs and makes actually the rest of our work more efficient. It's a little more work upstream. You get a little extra pre-work. And downstream, man, everything is smarter, faster, more efficient. You waste time like all the time. Like, I don't know, we'll just throw it out there and see what happens. Let's just try a new product and see if that works. Let's try this. Do we actually know these people? So finding things that give you insight, tell you who's there and what's going on and how, tracking live things that's happening, following up with deep storytelling, that find ways to not just get the data, but get the stories of the people we serve. Do you really know your customers? And we'll talk to people who are like, by the way, this is the same pile of Legos. And they're like, no, we got it, Scott. And they show me their really cool charts and graphs. And I'm like, good, you are almost there. And my team and I were like, show me the story. I mean, literally write a customer profile. Here's the story and an archetype. Here's what we're looking at. We typically see this, and you might have 2 or 3. If you serve a large population, you're not going to have just one type of person come in, and not everybody exactly, but you can get the middle of the bell curve, right? The bulk of people will fit in usually 2 or 3 buckets and say, these are the kinds of people that we're targeting to serve. Do we really know their stories? And it's a little creativity, where you start with your data and you wrap a story around it. I mean, literally a document that says, here's their life story. Here's what they're after. Here's what's going on. If you really haven't got to that phase, you're on your way. I'm very pro data. Data's awesome. You need it. Don't randomly guess when you make this up. But man, get to the end and create stories to capture the lives of these people. Listen, they don't actually care about your thing. They care how your thing makes their life better. If you don't know the life they're trying to build, you don't know how to make your thing better serve them. Get customer insight. And this fuel, this steady stream of insight coming into our company, coming into our team, coming into our nursing staff, whatever your application of this is, it makes a massive difference moving forward. Now that's for us. We got to do stuff for them. What do they want? Well, where we start is not where most people expect me to go. In fact, it's the first gear is the biggest gear in my engine, and it's operational excellence. See, I want to think about excellence like, how fancy can I be? How cool are I? We got all these, great facilities and, good treatments or cool marketing, and none of the fancy stuff is what they're doing. Before you do anything else, you've got to deal with their first question. In fact, we say it's first in sequence and in priority. The question they're really asking first is, can I trust you? Can I trust you? And man, this is not how fancy are you. This is how consistent are you. The basic fundamentals of this. You've got to show up with consistent excellence, or you will not make this happen. And here's the hard truth about this, guys. Inconsistent excellence earns the same trust as consistent failure. Being inconsistently excellent earns you the same trust as consistently failing. See, trust is not, you don't get partial credit for partial excellence. It's not how trust works, right? Like, she's a great employee. I mean, she steals from us once or twice a year, but the rest of the time, man, we love her. She's like, no, you trust her every day, or you don't trust her at all. Like, trust is a binary relationship with humans on the fundamentals, right? Can I trust you? And when they show up, there are some early signals. This is one of the first things you got to think about for first impressions. By the way, this can be broader. I don't have time to get into all the stuff today, but like, you want to think about security. You want to think about the quality of the care. You want to think about the cleanliness of the space. There's all sorts of things that you might want to do. But talking about first impressions today, man, how do we show up and make a kind of connection that gets people right out of the gate saying, these are the kind of people I can trust? Before you tell them, take them on a tour and show them your cool property. Do they trust you? How do you deal with trust questions? Let me tell you how you don't deal with it. In my experience, there's a couple of you right now, maybe a dozen of you, that are like, oh, he's right, and trust, and I'm going to go talk to my team, and we're going to tell them stories. It's going to be awesome. And I got bad news for you. It's not going to work. You don't get operational excellence through motivational speeches. Leaders, like, what's that old leadership joke? The beatings will continue until morale improves, right? Like, yeah, you can whip them into a frenzy, and maybe for, I don't know, a month or so, your team will be like, we're doing it and we're trying harder. And then here's the bad news, right? Deming, he's the father of systems thinking, manufacturing excellence, like the precision world. You get the Baldrige world. It's all about Deming's. We'll talk about excellence. And here's what he says. Every system is perfectly designed to get the results it gets. Yeah. So if you have some inconsistent factor of your experience, we greet them quickly, or sometimes we forget to, or man, we don't always have it clean, or whatever the thing you're focused on. Yeah. Motivational speeches isn't going to change that. That's the system you built. That's the bad news, right? You know what, though? It's also the good news. You don't have to somehow try to hype everybody up every month and keep this white hot energy. You can just build a different system. There are tactical things you do. My goal today is not to motivate you. It's to give you a list of tactical things. So you may want to take some notes and think about how this works. But we did have a question earlier, and I'll confirm we are going to send. There's the deck here. You're going to get all these slides, and so if you're interested, at the end you can flip through this, and then you'll be able to kind of go back and check these things. But man, I want you to start thinking, what would it look like for me? Which of these might fit my situation? So I'm going to give you some tactics on how to do this. They may not all fit every situation, but we got a lot of people here. So I want to make sure everybody gets at least one item. Again, so generically, not knowing your situation, my first question will be, how clearly have you defined it? See, one of the biggest mistakes we see when we work with facilities is they use vague words like excellence. Excellence is actually a dangerous word to use. Quality, friendliness, hospitality, these are all lovely words, right? And the problem is everybody will nod their head and agree. Oh, excellence, warmth, hospitality. Nobody's like, no, I want to be a cold jerk. I hate doing a good job. Everybody agrees with the concept. And the problem is, well, you know what? It's like I have teenagers in my house, my kids. It's like when they tell me in all sincerity that their room is clean. And I have learned their definition of clean and my definition of clean. Those words aren't the same thing. And for the record, I'm not the jerk dad. I'm not like testing the windowsill for dust. I'm talking about giant piles of clothes on their bed. Like, you can't lay down on that. Like, can we define what clean is here? You can't assume they know. When you're talking to your team about showing up with excellence, whichever area you're working on, and here's what we got to do to build trust. Have you spelled it out so clearly they could measure it? Let me give you one really cool tactical tool for that. Management by picture. For any of you facility folks who create staging stuff or putting things together, you could argue and talk and complain in these vague words, or you could literally take a picture, laminate it, or put it in an app, or there's a lot of ways to do it. And you say this, when it looks like this, it's set up correctly. Or we could make them guess, like, make a welcoming environment. What does that look like? Listen, leaders, when we make our people guess and they guess wrong, that's not actually their fault. That's our fault. Be so specific. This also works individually. If you're doing your own goals, do you know exactly what you're after? I mean, personally, I'll give you a very personal example. Part of my life story is I grew up as an athlete. I got way overweight. I stopped being athletic, like just pendulum swung. And I really had to go through this about 10, 15 years ago now, go through this big weight loss, get my body back process. And yeah, so this is very personal for me. It's like, lose weight, the most common New Year's resolution, right? I did that for years. Like, I should get back in shape. What the smack does that mean, right? I'm going to get in shape this year. Lose weight. Like, if I lose a half a pound by the end of the year, is that enough? Like, what exactly are we talking about? And until you're specific, man, it's this fuzzy off there thing. And of course, you're not going to make it happen. Get really clear. Maybe you're doing that. And maybe you need to put a leader on it. Like, who drives this thing? Who owns it? Whose job is it? Listen, here's what I found. If everybody's responsible for it, nobody's going to do it. A terrible way of saying this is the best way to starve a dog is to assign 5 people to feed him. Well, you didn't feed buddy and you did. Oh, sorry, buddy. We all assume someone else is doing it. We didn't disagree with your concept. It was nobody's clear job. Now, have an asterisk on it, because I know we have some leaders here in the room, like maybe CEO, executive director, director of nursing, right? The buck stops with you, head of marketing. Welcome. Guys, you're the worst people to own some of this stuff. You're great at it. That's the reason we gave it to you. You're highly skilled and experienced, and you got 17 things on your plate. And the problem is that sometimes it's getting your leftover time. And rightfully so. Like, it legitimately isn't your top item. It shouldn't be. So it gets your leftover time. And what do you know? That's going to make things inconsistent. So if you want this to be consistent, it needs to be somebody's responsibility. That's a top priority for them. Maybe not their very top, but high priority, which means you may need to take a hat off your head. You're like wearing 17 hats, right? You need to put one of those hats on somebody else's head, deputize them and say, hey, maybe even for your shift in your floor, you drive this. You check with me, make sure this happens. And everyone's got to do it, but somebody's got to check on it. If you want to see it done well, put a leader on it. Man, it might be as simple as this. You should get faster communication tools. One of the problems in a facility with lots of moving parts and people going on is, do we even know what's going on? A guest shows up. It might be 20 minutes before we even find out because I'm busy in the back on the hall doing my job somewhere else. It wasn't an announced visit. Am I ready for this? A resident needs help. A resident has a question or a change has happened to the schedule. How quickly does that get out to your team? And sometimes it's quite as simple as this. Your team cares and everybody's interested, and you don't have a tool that keeps everybody synced up. Again, these aren't motivational hype. You can whip them up, but you guys should talk more. Or maybe you should just put a tool in place that lets everybody communicate much quicker with the people they need to talk to and know what's going on. Increase your excellence. Why? Because the question they're asking is, can I trust you? Now, this is the first biggest gear, and it's the boring stuff, but it's so fundamental, man. These basics create the trust. These are the things everybody gets, but these next ones really assume you know your customers. Yeah, now, the next gear in the engine, and by the way, these next two are small gears. They're so small that I tried to make them really tiny in the early versions of this diagram because we say you once or twice a year do one or two things, or maybe once or twice a visit you do one of these things. These are not things you have to do all the time every day and spend tons of time and money on, but you just have these targeted little moments where you make an impact if you do it just right. And the next one is personalized service. See, the question your customers start asking is, do you care about me? Do you care about me? Do you see me as a person? Do I matter to you? Or is this just another transaction? Am I just getting through a medical procedure? Or you're just checking off informational boxes? Is this actually, am I noticed as a human? I mean, this is a fundamental human question. All of us are asking this question all the time. I half joke that it still feels like we're all still in middle school, right? In the lunchroom in middle school, trying to wonder, like, does anybody notice me here? I think we're really good at pretending we don't care anymore, but I think we still all want somebody to notice us. So how do you do this? Well, I'm going to play a little video here. This is a video back from when I was on staff at Chick-fil-A. We put together this video for frontline staff. I'm allowed to play it for you. In fact, I'm going to tell you how to get a copy of this to play for your team if you want at the end. So it's about 2.5 minutes long. And it gets this idea that we're here for more than a transaction. In fact, we're here to make a human connection. So enjoy. Oh, emotional. Allergy attack. All the time. Listen, so remember I said I studied the great organizations. Well, we'd go inside, meet them, build relationships, and they would mentor us. And one of my mentors is a guy named Howard Behar. And Howard is now the retired, but was former the president of Starbucks International. Grew them from like 50 stores to like 20,000. And he taught us that this is how they say at Starbucks. We're not in the coffee business serving people. We're in the people business serving coffee. See, coffee was just a tool they used to impact the people and tell them their story. And I think I would say the same thing about you, maybe times 10. I mean, what we do is so deeply personal. We are in the people business, whether we're helping them with their physical needs, whether we're helping them feel connected to their families and feel peace of mind, whether we're helping them serve their patients and we're doing a patient, care swap thing. Like, we are in the people business, and all those people have a story. Do we see that? So if you want to get this video, they have released it on YouTube. I just dropped it in the chat, the search string that you could just drop this in YouTube and it should pop right up to the top. It comes to the top for me when I enter this, and you'll see it right there. Plus spoofs and knockoffs. I mean, welcome to YouTube. But there's some really great stuff that you should grab and take for your team and play it for them. But I saw some comments in the chat that I'll validate. Some of you should play this for your team, and some of you should make a version of this video yourself. It's not hard. You stage a job site, put a hallway set up, right? Whatever the zone you want to focus on. Roll a camera around, put word bubbles and stories over their head and music, and have some fun on this thing. Do we really know the people that we're serving and what they care about? And man, this just reminds us. I find people need to be reminded more than they need to be instructed here. This is deeply human. We all care. The question is, do we remember to actually do it? Everyone has a story. Well, I'm not just here to motivate you and pluck some emotional strings. Sorry about that. Good thing we're all off camera for those moments. I want to give you tactics. How do you actually do this, right? Again, my job, list you a bunch of tactics. So there's two basic levers you can pull. You can go high touch and you can go high tech. High touch is like this concierge white glove service. We spent a lot of time with Ritz-Carlton and their founder, Horst Schulze, and their teams. And, I had to suck it up and sacrifice. I had to go to a lot of their properties and, stay. And we had to eat at fine dining restaurants. I mean, it was tough. VIP tours at Disney World. I mean, for you, I was doing it for you guys. It was awesome. And we learned lots of tactical things. But we also went to the high tech end. We spent time in Silicon Valley and startups and AI experts and all this stuff to say, how do you actually integrate these things and make it happen? So again, I've only got time to do a few. I'm going to give you a handful of things for you to think about. 4 different tactics for you. Now, you don't need to do them all. Remember, once or twice, you do 1 or 2 of these things, and it just creates this kind of connection. So pick the one that fits you in your role the most. But since we have a variety, I'm giving you a variety of options. First, use their name. Like, don't overcomplicate this. The sweetest word in any language is a person's name. Everyone loves being called by name. So you probably have some of that information. Make sure we're using their name on a regular basis. Make it into the system. Call them, talk to them. First names often are usually better than last names, but depends on the relationship. Last name still counts. People love hearing their name on the loudspeakers, on the announcers, in their messaging that you send them. You can almost not overuse somebody's name. Send them a note. Like, the more digital our world gets, the more powerful a handwritten note is. Like, just scribble a handwritten note. And this can be simple. You can set up a stack of notes. It can be 3 lines. I mean, we don't have to write them in an 18th century letter, right? Pages of deep heart. Like, hey, how you doing? Hope you're thinking well. Remember this one moment. Simple stuff, right? Send them a note. Make it, now, if the handwritten note is too complicated or too overwhelming for you, make it about the text. Send them a text. Listen, a handwritten note's better than a text, but you know what? A text is better than nothing. A text is still good. It's not bad. Nobody's upset if you send them an email or a text or something of that nature. Send them a note that just says, for you, I was thinking of you. Now, this is personalized. The tiny little bit, you put their name in a comment that they're saying, it's not generic, like, thank you for your visit to our facility. That is actually a pretty bad experience because they know that didn't matter. In fact, it reminds them, this wasn't actually for me. But if it's like, hey, Deontay, thanks for your visit. And we really hope you had a good time checking out. I love that you loved the food. The food was great. Something they made a comment about. And you're like, that's it. Send that note. It doesn't have to be long, just enough that they get it. Okay, now let's start sliding into the tech end, right? Man, if you plug into your CRM, especially, I'm going to talk to the marketer folks. We love the CRM for the actual prospects and building relationships and checking in. But you know what's amazing? It's like we have all this human knowledge and we don't plug it in the system. Because it doesn't plug in the system, or our front desk doesn't connect to our CRM, then the visit time is a logbook and people sign in. And then how are we supposed to follow up with them? And what does that look like? If you plug stuff into your CRM, man, some of this is an automatic, easy follow-up. If you just get everything in there, there are easy options. Do follow-up reminders and texts and stuff, and you don't have to remember to send a note. The CRM sends a note for you. It gets really beautiful if to connect all the dots. And this is just a really specific one for facilities for seniors. Man, track who gets visited and who doesn't. This isn't on us. We can't control who comes visited, but you know what you can do? You can notice. Do you see me? Do you notice me, right? Do you actually care? And you will find some powerful moments happen with a very simple tracking system that just says, hey, Mr. Johnson no one's come by in 6 months for this guy. What if we take care of that, right? Or, hey, no one's visited that hospital. That's a key partner for us for a long time. What does that look like? And so whether it's the B2B or B2C kind of setup, knowing how the relationship's going and track who's visiting and who's not can be a beautiful moment just to say, hey, send somebody over to, you don't even have to mention, I noticed nobody's come. That can be embarrassing or discouraging. You just schedule your own visit and spend a little time talking, and lives can be impacted. You want to talk about impact. It gets really beautiful. So personalized touches. Well, we're almost done. Last gear is memorable moments. If you do this, they start to really love you. They feel cared for. You want someone to love you, you love them first, right? You care for them, they care back. It starts getting beautiful. And this is when it goes to the next level and they just become raving fans. You create a memorable moment. See, all this is happening and it's steady and it's beautiful, but you really want to tip it over the edge. You got to create something that pops and sticks in their memory and just becomes this magical, special experience. So how do we do that? What does it tactically look like? Well, before I tell you how to do it, let me tell you what not to do. See, the question I got to ask is, who's the hero of these moments? These are like story-worthy moments, right? Get them to buzz and get them excited. This is how you get viral, word of mouth. And let me tell you the mistake I made in the early days. Okay, so I wanted everyone to talk about me and get excited and make these moments happen. And so I would say rationally, a little biased here, but I'm like, come on, this makes sense. I'm going to make a moment where it's about how awesome we are, right? We'll talk about our facility and our team, and it's going to be great. And then I'm going to use this metaphor. It should work for you. I'm going to use Star Wars. Hopefully, maybe you're not a Star Wars nerd like I am, but it should still work for you. I keep wanting to be Luke Skywalker in the story, right? I want to be the hero, and I'm going to show him my Jedi skills, right? I'm like, look at that guy. He's the Jedi, and everybody. And it didn't work. Nobody wants to tell my story. Nobody wants to be excited about how cool I am. What we got to do is make our customer, make the person we're serving feel like a hero because they're with us, right? But I need to be in the story. Like, how do we get business value out of this if I don't participate somehow? So if I don't get to be Luke, who do I get to show up? What's the role we play? Yoda. That we're the mentor. We're the guide that says, hey, it's not about us. It's about you. We're just here to help you realize how awesome you are. You're not a moisture farmer. You're going to save the galaxy. You're here to be awesome. We love you. We love your story. We love how much you care. We're here to celebrate you. See, the question your customers are asking, the people you serve are asking, how do I feel about myself when I'm with you? Not how do I feel about you? How do I feel about myself when I'm with you? And it's often subconscious. This is not asked out loud. But you need to know this is happening in the back of everybody's brain all the time. Can we make them feel like a Jedi because they did stuff with us? Now, this can work personally or professionally. What you do is you celebrate the people you serve, celebrate your customers, whoever that is for you, not your company, not yourself, not your capability. You talk about how great they are and how much you like partnering with people who are great like that. You want them to feel awesome. You make them the hero and it takes off. Now, how do you tactically do this? There's a lot of really creative ways, but let me give you 2 examples from famous companies that we've worked with that you can borrow and make your own version of. The first is from Chick-fil-A. You can enhance an existing experience. This is personal for me. One of my all-time favorite things they do. So their jam, by the way, is to celebrate parents, caretakers, guardians, of people who care for kids. And like they do this one's a daddy-daughter date night. So you need to know I have 3 daughters. So I've done this a lot. And it's a little nostalgic. My girls are older now. They're all like late teenagers in college. And so, yeah, we don't get to do daddy-daughter dates as much anymore. But this is the thing. Chick-fil-A did not invent Valentine's Day. That's when this usually is. It just happened in my market back. I live in the Atlanta area. They just did this. And man, you show up, you sign up for a time slot, you have to reserve space, and they take about half the restaurant. They put a black tablecloth down. They come to your table to order. You don't go up to the counter. It's my little girl's dream. They got to get all dressed up, get all frou-frou pretty, and eat chicken nuggets. I mean, that's the perfect date in their book. It was super awesome. They would have live music. They didn't invent that date. They didn't make this happen. That was a pre-existing thing in the world. And Chick-fil-A said, you know what? We can make that moment awesome. Find things that are happening in their life. If it's your residents, like find these moments and celebrate them. If it's the visitors, find out what's happening in the families' lives and help them celebrate that. If it's your partners, what's happening in their cycles? Maybe it's a business event or launch of a thing or a problem. Like lean into this. So get involved in what's happening in their world and you enhance it. You make them feel like you're. Now here's the key. On the way out, Chick-fil-A doesn't say, aren't we awesome? Here's what they say. Dads, brace yourself, right? Here's what they say to us. Hey, thanks for being the kind of dad that would bring your daughter to an event like this. The world needs more dads like you. Oh, I mean, I walk out of there like dad of the year, right? Like I took my kid to fast food and I feel like a Jedi dad, man. Like I must be awesome. Chick-fil-A doesn't say we're awesome. They say you are awesome. That's the point of this. Now, okay, maybe you're like, it kind of works, or how do we do this? Let me give you another one because we're here to talk about first impressions. Start strong. Now, I'm not going to ask you to do this, but like it would be really interesting if we put this in the chat. Some of you are brave enough to own this. How many of you still have? Actually, we'll do it. I'm going to put you on the spot. How many of you have an Apple product box you still have not thrown away? Just put your hand up, thumbs up, my hand is up, by the way, in case you hadn't noticed. My wife has on her nightstand like 3 stacks, right? Like a stack of 3 things right there. Still, it's been years. Some like her watch, she's had it, I think 3 years, maybe almost 4 now, still sitting there. It's crazy. Look at this. Oh my goodness. I'm seeing the chat blow up. Now I'm getting worried, right? Hey, if you keep all your Amazon boxes too, that's a different problem. That's called hoarding. You should be worried, but the Apple box. Now, why? What is going on here? Why this box and not the others? Because they made a moment out of the opening. They did a strong start, right? They started strong, and it was the design. By the way, if you didn't know this, they have patented their Apple box. Like that whole box experience, it's literally got a patent on it. And so you're wrapping things up and doing all this cool stuff and it's crazy. Like it pops open. It's hard to happen. The first thing you see is your device in a frame, like it's a piece of art. I mean, I feel like I'm in Little Mermaid, like the light breaks down from the heavens. Right. It's crazy. They made a moment out of the dadgum box opening, which is why we can't throw it away. You're like, wait, we don't sell electronics. Like, what do we? That initial moment matters. This is why we're having this webinar. Today's focus is first impressions. How do we build trust right away? There are a few things right away. How quickly do we respond? How clean is the place? There's personal stuff. Can we start using their name right away? And man, can we do little things to pop that initial moment? Can you preload a gift? Can you have a little packaging? Can you arrange for some cool entryway experience? Can you do something in the beginning that just says welcome? Now, this might be for a visitor popping in. We got our visit package ready to go. Maybe it's for a resident. Maybe it's the first time your partner sends you somebody, hey, we partnered with this hospital and they referred somebody over, this rehab center. You make a moment out of the initial experience to say, welcome. That first impression is a wet cement opportunity. It takes a little bit of effort to make a lasting impression. Don't hope it goes well. Blow their mind right out of the gate. Small investment here pays off massive down the road. Do you really have the system? As you can see, look, these are tactics. This isn't magic. It's not try harder and hope it works. You don't even need a ton of money for some of these things. Use their name. Put a little gift box together. Make sure you communicate fast. Get a small investment in the right stuff makes a massive difference. Now, leaders, one last thing and I'm out. The belt behind the gears. I didn't actually have this in the early days. And I learned the hard way when we were implementing this with companies, because this is what we do. We help people actually build this stuff. It's a healthy leadership team. Man, the team has got to buy in and all together. And the key word is healthy. Because you might have great individuals, but a healthy team collaborates and works together. You can't have the nursing staff say, we're doing this, and the rest of the staff, facilities and food say we're not. Everybody's got to be on the same page and have the same experience. You can't have the marketing promise one thing and the operations deliver another thing. Everybody's got to be on the same page and truly collaborating. That's why this is a belt. It's not a separate gear. It's not different tactics. But if you don't have a healthy team together, we'll often have to do a pre-project with a company to get the team aligned and working and collaborating, maybe even deal with some blockages that have happened in that collaboration flow and get everybody back on the same page and then get this thing going. Otherwise, if you create two different experiences, you just confuse your people and it doesn't work. So don't blow past this and you can't cherry pick one part of the engine and get the result. You really need everybody to show up. And then it just works. It's not magic. It's not luck. It's just a system. This is how the engine works. So, Deontay, I'm going to turn it back over to you because the next slide is for you guys to talk about what's next. That's the engine. Again, we're going to have more stuff. We can do Q&A here for a minute and do some things, but it's part of why am I doing this with AccuShield is I'll just set you up for Deontay to you talk and then I'll back out. These guys do the stuff that I'm talking about. When we get in facilities and work in them, and when AccuShield shows up, the way you get this done is often through them. So Deontay, would you tell us a little bit about how you guys actually do this?
Yeah, you bet. Thanks for that, Scott. And also, huge shout out to the audience. I mean, that chat was just lighting up. So that's fantastic. We love to see the engagement. So as Scott mentioned, we here at AccuShield, we're all about fostering safe and thriving senior living communities and skilled nursing facilities. So going to the safe part, everything Scott mentioned about building trust, that's one core tenet of kind of what we like to do with communities that we partner with. Thriving, that's all about experience, connection with folks that are coming and going. And this is also a visual of AccuShield's core components. And we've highlighted in green some of the ways that we contribute to experiences that delight customers. Scott, give you the next one there. And so first part of that, so, we discussed that tours, they're an important part of a first impression, whether it's a walk-in tour or whether it's a scheduled tour. And so with AccuShield, these walk-in tours are always captured. We can also push these to your CRM. So huge shout out to the Welcome Home folks. We've got an integration with them. We'll be able to push those walk-in tours there. And we've also can set up alerts and notifications so that the staff inside of a building can know when a tour comes in. So that way you can give them a great visitor first impression and make sure they have a memorable experience. Go to the next one there, Scott. Yeah, so another part is creating a critical personal touch also includes name badges. So every time a visitor comes in, a name badge will be printed so that way everyone can easily identify who is there and also greet these folks by name. Different visitor types are going to have different name badges. Another kind of funny, cool resident story. There was a couple communities I used to visit down in Florida. And if residents saw a visitor that did not have a name badge, they would go tell that person to go to the front, sign in. So these communities kind of had residents form their own little police task force to make sure that they know everyone that's inside the building. And Google reviews. So we have a product called Reputation Accelerator, and this helps Our partner communities collect both good and bad feedback, right? So celebrating the good by highlighting staff members and a strong culture, and then also addressing feedback that may not be as good, right? That's part of that visitor experience. Visitors can also be prompted to leave a Google review upon their sign out of your community and facility. And so far, we've collected about 1.7 million visitor ratings. We have customers that have actually tripled their Google review numbers within about 45 days using the RA product. And lastly, a very practical tool that we got, AI, that's the hot thing today. And so in order to better show how you guys have improved your online reputation and how we can see by family members, visitors and all that, we've actually put this Google Gemini powered tool together. And so if you hit that QR code there and the link in the top right, you can actually analyze your community's online reputation and then see how you stack up against nearby communities and facilities. On top of that, we'll actually share a link in the post-webinar follow-up along with the recording and the slide deck so you can view all that information there. All right. And last part, yeah, if you would be interested in discussing, I'm more than happy to send over some follow-up information. We can discuss that. And next, we'll also move to Q&A as well. So Scott, if you have that next slide there. All right, so any questions that anyone has, we're happy to answer those at this point now. We've got one story that Scott will share, so hang tight.
Yeah, I've got, don't leave yet. I've got my favorite principle and story at the very end. I saved it a little bit. So we'll wrap up just like 1 or 2 minutes before the very end. I'll give you this bit and go. But yes, we wanted to give a little time if we have some questions or things that we wanted to process for people to go into this. So if anyone has questions, we can drop those in. And I know we've got some of these been submitted already. I'm scrolling through a few of them and going through this. Yeah, I'll give you one that happens. Where do I start? So this is a good question. Thanks for the asking. Where do we dig into this? Where do we do? Well, I would say the first thing that we usually start with is some low-hanging fruit around operational excellence. Usually that's the easiest one to figure out. Hey, are we consistent? And just put a scorecard. Like, don't overcomplicate this. Do we know what we're doing and can we even track it? Maybe you don't even know what the right goal is yet. Maybe it's like, hey, for a month, we're just going to track it. And you know what the goal is in month 2? Do better than month 1, because we don't know what normal number ought to be here. But where do I start is usually just start with a scorecard on operational excellence. That might be a piece for you. Is what are the fundamentals? This is an interesting exercise. Maybe sit down with your team. You got a handful of folks and you guys talk through this, or maybe you do this solo and you just say, okay, what are the critical few things I have to get right if they're going to trust me? What are those fundamentals? I'm going to give you Chick-fil-A's just because I think it'll make this clear for you. They have taste of food, speed of service, cleanliness of the restaurant, and friendliness of the employees. Taste, speed, friendly, cleanly. Like you could have written that list. That's not complicated. It's not the fancy stuff. I mean, they have other stuff, but like just the fundamentals, right? If the food's not good, if it's not clean, if they were it's a fast food joint, so they have to be fast, right? The staff was rude to you, like you wouldn't trust them. You just got to get those basics down. What are your basics? And so that's the first, is define that. If you got a team, have everybody discuss it. I have, it's amusing and interesting in a both good and bad way. Like maybe I shouldn't be amused by this, but I'll do this with leadership teams. And I rarely have a team, if it's the first time they've done this, where everybody agrees on the same list. Like there's 5 written down, maybe they agree on 3 of them, but they're like, wait, what's that on your list? And I never thought about that. So don't assume, right? Don't make them guess. Agree as a group and then spell it out and then just start tracking it. And that alone can just clarify a lot. And again, until they trust you, none of the other fancy stuff matters. That's the first. The second layer, often maybe like, we got that. What do we do? Customer insight. How well do you know your customers? Do you have written descriptions, little profiles of here's our target customer. Here's our kind of our key stereotype. We're talking, it's a Charlie and here's what he does and here's the life he lives. So the customer insight profiles is the second two things. Those two things are typically the first that we dig into and get started. So that's one. Deontay, I see another one here in the submitted questions that I'll throw this one to you. It says, does AccuShield generate benchmark data for provider comparisons? So what's the data stuff like for AccuShield?
Yeah, great question. So there's a lot of data that we'll have on the back end, particularly with visitor data, and then also data around Google reviews, ratings, and feedback. So all of that's part of the dashboard. And there's, we're constantly hearing feedback from customers and developing things. So short answer, yes, that's part of it, and something that we constantly reiterate and continue to refine and improve.
I'll hit the next one. If you fumble on the first impression, what's the best way to recover? Quickly and generously. So this is an odd thing about customer experience. If you recover really well, you'll actually like you more afterwards than if you didn't mess up at all. Now, I'm not encouraging you to mess up on purpose because per trust, you can only do this once in a while. Like if you regularly mess up and apologize, the first time they'll love you. The second time they'll still like you. The third time they start wondering, like, is this like, I appreciate your apology, but you just keep screwing up. Can I trust you? So you can get away with it once or twice. But man, so what you put together is a recovery package. If you know this is a kind of thing that's hard to do, and we occasionally drop the ball on this and we're just ready for it. We hope we don't do it. We track it. But when we do, we go over the top. So I'm going to give you an easy restaurant example. Just hopefully make this clear for some of you. You mess up some part of the meal. You don't just comp the meal. You give them cards for a whole free meal the next time. Like way over the top. Like, I'm so sorry. And this, and we'll throw a free dessert in and do all this stuff. That they're like, they love you, right? The visit, they're a little off. Hey man, we're so sorry. We were late getting to the front. We didn't have AccuShield to text us. And so you waited here for 30 minutes. I'm so sorry. Not only do you apologize, you give them an extra gift. Afterwards, maybe you send them something to their home. You say, so you go over the top in your deal and just own it. That's the second part. Don't defend yourself or explain, listen, we had this other thing. That's why I couldn't get to you. They had a disruption. You just apologize. Like, in fact, there's an odd human psychology. If you beat yourself up a little bit, they'll often come to your defense. And so, yeah, you don't explain or defend, even when you have a great explanation. If you defend yourself, then it creates this antagonism. No, you just own it. We're terrible. We're so sorry. Don't be a jerk. Like, we're the worst ever. That's not good. But like, we feel terrible. This is never acceptable. We're so sorry. They'll defend you a little bit. Then you generously do stuff. And again, the details, the rest of it depend on the kind of fumble. But hopefully that gives you an idea. Yeah, you can totally recover from some of this stuff. It's not one or done. I think we got time for probably one more, Deontay, to dig into here. So I'll throw this one back to you because it talks about how does AccuShield handle employee feedback and engagement? What do you guys do stuff with that?
Yeah, so actually looking at this one right now. Yeah, so we do handle employee engagement as well. We have a lot of partners that we work with who integrate the kiosks with their time and attendance product. And then on the other side, it's collecting feedback from staff and pushing that feedback and then also reviews to Glassdoor and Indeed to help with employee engagement and also employee recruiting. So we can not only utilize that feedback and push Google reviews or push reviews to Google from your visitors, but we can also push reviews to Glassdoor and Indeed from your staff as well.
Sweet. Well, we've only got 3 minutes left, so I'm going to jump in and do my final bit, and then we can hang out for the last minute or so here. This will just take a minute. But I really appreciate you hanging out here, those of you who stayed, because this is where it gets really personal for me. Oh, I forgot we put this in here. If you want more of this content, I'm giving you a slice. You can go ahead and get my book. And they just dropped a link. You can click the link on here to go. This just takes you to the Amazon page. I wrote a book on this engine and this system with same concept, no change in the engine, but more deep tactical explanations on what to do and why to do it and when to do this tactic or not. So if you want to really build all these systems out, this is a great next step. If you want to if you like the content, you want more, there's one option. The other option is we'll send you a link in the follow-up email. I do a free newsletter where every 2 weeks I talk more tactics and just it's like a 2-paragraph thing. Here's another tactic. Here's another tactic. So if that's interesting to you, we can get content. What I wanted to leave us was this. Why do this? Because sometimes it feels like when we do this, it's, hey, we're talking tactics. Like this is a nurse's station, right? IV bags, monitors, like, we're just kind of going through we're going to tighter and leaner and more efficient and effective. And we're going to crank up our numbers. And I just want to remind us, yeah, you know what? You can make more money doing this, but maybe it's like, no, I'm not in this for the money. I'm in this for people like this. See, this personal, that's my nephew, Logan. This is about 5 years ago. Logan got cancer. He was 7 years old. We don't know what happened. Non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. For those of you know, it's a blood cancer. And this is a story about St. Jude's Children's Hospital. So not exactly the same, but it's, adjacent, right next door neighbor to us. And man, we have become raving fans. We knew about them. If you don't know, St. Jude's helps people who have children with terminal illnesses, and they just showed up like a boss. All this tactical excellence, all those monitor IV bags and all the technical, we're getting tighter in our engine. It's because there's real humans on the other end of that. And they have their own version of this. Now, I've not worked with them. I can't take credit for St. Jude's at all, but I saw it when my family went through this. And I was like, this is why I do it. This is what gets me so excited about building this engine. See, all that stuff, they build operational excellence. I mean, they do their stuff because people's lives and health are on the line. They also do personalized service. They don't just care for the disease, they care for the family. I mean, they have staff dedicated in the rooms to help families process what it's like to have a kid with a terminal illness. And they even do their own version of memorable moments. I mean, they call it something different, but they celebrate the people. So my nephew's name is Logan James, which if any of you are Marvel fans, you might recognize. He's named after the Wolverine character in Marvel. And so he's a huge fan, loves that stuff. And they found out. And so this real picture is this. This is Logan in the middle of chemo. And those are the male staff that showed up and said, "You're the hero, buddy. We're on your team, man. We're Avengers. You got this." Man, all this stuff matters. Am I doing this because I want to make a more profitable business? Or am I doing this because I want to be noble and make an impact on the world? Yes. When you build this engine, you don't have to pick between noble and profitable. The same stuff you would do to build a more powerful, effective company and impacted is the same stuff you would do to change their lives. What we do, what you do matters. Don't settle for regular operations. Do this not because it's good for business. Do this because this is good for the world. Don't settle for regular average. Go be awesome and create raving fans that make a lasting impression. Oh, and let me leave you with this final encouragement. Logan, they did an experimental treatment with him and he went in full remission. This is actually the latest picture when he went to make a wish trip to Disney. We had a blast. The whole family, like 40 people, extended family, all came, spent a weekend in Orlando. Man, if it feels like you're doing all this technical stuff, remember, the reason we do all this is because we want to have a great organization that also makes a great impact in lives. You can be noble and profitable at the same time. Thanks. And I think we're officially finished. Deontay, AccuShield guys, thanks for putting this on. And the rest of you, go be awesome.